and welcome to the Rest Hold Wrestling channel with myself, Kieran, and of course, Gareth here.
That's right. Today we're going to be talking about the NXT Championship match, the 30-minute IronMan match, 4-way. Bloody hell, that's a mouthful, isn't it?
Fuck.
Everything from what we thought going in to where it's going to lead. So let's just jump straight in with it, Kieran. And what were your initial expectations? Not before you had time to think about it, when you just first saw the graphic, or when you first saw Regal announce, or whatever it was you saw first. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, you've got to obviously talk about Karrion Kross in this regards, in his injury and how it was unexpected. So their backs were against the wall. So to be too critical on this is never particularly fair. And so, you can't just be too harsh on the situation. And when they came up with this match and William Regal announced the 60-minute IronMan match between four of arguably the biggest guys in the recent history of NXT,
The cornerstones, as they were called.
Yeah, like Finn Balor is quite a while back now, but at least you've got the Tommaso Ciampa, you've got Gargano, you've got Cole, recent, and Finn Balor just to shake the mix a little there. And it's huge. It was huge. As far as I'm aware, Iron Man match under the banner of WWE, we haven't had since Randy Orton, John Cena.
Not a 60-minute one.
60
We
minutes.
had like 30-minute ones, a couple in NXT in the women's division, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
And then they've had a couple of like 30-minute ones, but the last 60-minute one was over 10 years ago, and I think that was Cena versus Orton. So yeah, it's been a long time.
So obviously we're heading into this point now. I was over the moon with it. I thought that like each and every individual in this match can bring it in this match. It had all the recipe for just a humongous match. Arguably one of the best matches of the year, especially within NXT, maybe wrestling in general. It had the formula there. So heading in, it was immensely exciting. I didn't want to watch it live. I watched it in the morning because, of course, we live in the UK. Didn't want to stay up at night. And
I stayed up.
Oh, you stayed up. You got to see it all live.
Finn Balor fanboy. Finn Balor fanboy.
I did see on Twitter.
I was convinced he was going to win, so I was like, I've got to stay up, got to watch it.
Yeah, and like heading in regards to who I thought would have been the winner, I thought Finn Balor was the best possible shout. I think with Ciampa, it's more so his arc, is more so a story. I was very much into the idea of him and having a struggle of sorts. Having seen that with Karrion Kross, I was very much interested in that, and obviously he spent a large portion of time away from the screens for a while, so we never really got to see that. They've just shifted him into supposedly a heel. He just did something. He did a dick move. I don't know if that's heel. I don't know.
It's kind of like old Ciampa is back. Like everyone likes him, but he's just being a psycho, I guess.
But then, Finn Balor is you'd regard him a bit as a dick, but he's not particularly a heel. He's.
That's such a weird one with Balor, because I thought he was kind of turning face recently.
Yeah.
And like he's been getting more mixed reactions, and obviously the crowd at the moment is a crowd that they plant, so the reactions, I guess, are a good indication in this case of what they're actually aiming for the character to be.
Yeah.
But then when he entered in this match, he got loads of boos. And I was like, oh, okay. Obviously, Ciampa did because he just did that thing last week. But Balor got probably the second most, even though Gargano's been kind of overtly heel now for a long time. Cole's probably the biggest babyface in that match, and considering he's been the top heel of that brand for the last 18 months, I guess. It's such a weird. It's kind of a representation of where NXT is at the moment, because there isn't really a top babyface since Keith Lee's left. I guess that kind of plays into what after my initial excitement, which was as soon as I saw the graphic, I was like, oh my God, amazing. And then I had a little think about it, and I was like, there's not really much story leading into this, if any at all. There's things you can play on from the past. Obviously, Gargano has a relationship with all of them. Ciampa is his long-time rival. Adam Cole is kind of his, over the last 18 months, the guy he struggled to beat. Obviously, beat him the first time, but struggled to beat. And they very much told the story that Adam Cole got the better of him. And then Finn Balor was the guy who kind of put that final fuse in the fire, I guess, that turned him heel. So there was stuff you could build on from the past, but there wasn't really much story. And then also going in with no real babyface as kind of NXT, that is what it's like at the moment. It was kind of hard to see what story they were going to do. So I was kind of like, I had my initial excitement, but then I was like, I'm probably going to be disappointed. So I was setting myself up for that. But then there was also the thing I was looking at. I was thinking it only really makes sense to make Balor the champion at the moment. So I was excited for that because I was like, I've just wanted to see them do something properly with him for so long now, because since Portland, he's maintained being like brilliant, but he hasn't really done anything all that much. And so like the whole thing with the North American Championship was just a bit like, oh, I want the North American Championship, but every time he got a chance to go for it, he'd always lose. It was like, okay, when's Finn Balor going to do something? So I was excited for that still, but I was very much expecting the disappointment, I think, as well.
Yeah, and I get that's where our thoughts were leading in, really. That's really was. Obviously, we've Adam Cole recently had it. Gargano, you could make a case for Gargano having the title. It would further develop that story of, the Gargano way, wherever that may be. It would
justify his heel turn, for sure.
There's definitely some sort of reason to go ahead and do that. Wouldn't blame that. However, like
he would have been my second choice, even though I didn't think they were going to go with him. I thought it was going to be Balor or Ciampa, because Ciampa never lost, and it's kind of the thing. And then they could have that match with Cross again or something, and do it in a slightly different way, and maybe tell a story. Obviously, they're not going that way, but Gargano was the only one apart from Balor that I would have wanted to see, because I think Gargano's, with his character now, is he's never had a really good title reign. The longest title reign he's ever had, I think, was with the NXT Tag Team Championships with DIY, and they didn't even have, like, that was just one takeover to the next, so it's about 70 odd days or something like that. So it wasn't particularly long. So you could say he kind of deserves it. And then he's kind of the perfect guy to take the fall when Karrion Kross does return and just destroy him after having a fairly decent run with the title. So it would have made sense. And you could have done something a bit like Seth Rollins' run with the title when he was that kind of snaky kind of heel, which was very good. But then, with that, Gargano can still put on good matches, which is kind of his forte, isn't it? So there was still an opportunity for that. But I was very much behind Balor and thinking they were going to pull the trigger, and they probably will. We'll get to that.
That was our lead in. I gather now we can talk. Let's talk about the match. Let's talk about the result here of the match, which I think is probably the biggest talking point here, given the controversy over the result, particularly. But beforehand, I just want to talk about the match, because I feel like this, although I completely understand the I won't call it outrage, because I don't think people are outraged by it. I think they're just disappointed. There's no hate. It's just like, just a sigh of just, that's not really what I was expecting. And I think this is what we'll come to in terms of expectations. It'll always come to that during this conversation. But in regards to the match, I was really disappointed in the match, which I was more surprised by, I think. In terms of results, I think given Keith Lee and him winning both titles and then dropping the North American title and then all these variety of things and what have you, and like results, I don't think are NXT's forte as of recent, personally.
I agree.
Especially like Rhea Ripley, that whole shenanigan thing where she lost but she didn't, and I don't know, it didn't suit me personally. The match
they do a lot of things. Sorry, just to go off that point, they do a lot of things to try and protect everyone in the match, which they did a lot in this. Everyone got a pinfall, and it was kind of to the detriment of the match, because kind of what you're hoping for, I guess, at least, is even if the person you don't want to win wins, the one thing I was like is, I just want to see a definitive winner and someone really take it. And that final stretch, I was hoping it was going to be Balor. I was thinking it could have also been Ciampa, but I was hoping someone would just take it and completely dominate that final bit to be like, yes, we're all great champions from the past. We're all the cornerstones of NXT and all that. But someone to stand up and say, I'm the guy right now, because I think in losing Cross, that was the guy right now, and it was very much a definitive champion. He dominated and then kind of walked through Keith Lee with an injury. So yeah, and that was kind of like the main disappointment. Is that like, and again, like you said with Rhea Ripley, and there's probably loads of other examples you can name throughout recent times in NXT, but they often just try to protect people too much, I think, rather than just telling the story of someone just being better than the other person at that current time. It doesn't bury them, doesn't mean that they're done forever. It just means that's the story that you're telling at the time, and it's really frustrating when they do this, and they do it all the time. So
yeah, just to mention on the Rhea Ripley point, because I think this could be misrepresented or misinterpreted. Last week she did take a pin to Raquel Gonzalez. We're not talking about that particular point. That was a good point. It was, but during her high-profile match, I can't particularly
the triple threat with Charlotte and Io Shirai, where she was kind of in two moves, so it was like an extra way of protecting her, but also it protected. The main thing that annoyed me with that is it protected Charlotte too much, because it's like you didn't then give the rub to Io Shirai over Charlotte, and Charlotte didn't lose the championship. And kind of, that's one area where they'd still protected Rhea Ripley in that, but they didn't. It could have been the other way around, it could have been Charlotte taking the fall, and then but yeah, that was another one of NXT's multi-person matches where they kind of made it. And the triple threats leading up to that North American Championship match, they were often done like that as well. Like the finish with where Timothy Thatcher passed out to Dexter Lumis, even though he's the submission guy who probably shouldn't be passing out. They did it in a way that kind of protected him because he had Balor in a submission. And then there was one where Bronson Reed, this is one where it kind of worked because Bronson Reed isn't the biggest star yet. He kind of got a frog splash kind of out of nowhere. And it was kind of like, oh, okay. But it's still, it's just like, this is the tendency that they have. It worked with Bronson Reed at that time because that was the way in which it should have been. But a few of those triple threats leading up to the North American Championship were also very much like, we need to get someone in the match, but we want to protect everyone as well. And it's just like, just let someone have that moment. It's really frustrating. But yeah.
Yeah. And as I was talking about in regards to the match as a whole, the reason why I kind of got a little bit disappointed with it all was how even it was. Personally, the idea of it being even, although on the grand scale of things, if like anyone can win it at this point, it's like, I get that. But in terms of story, in terms of actual feuds, actual things moving forward, as we're going to be talking about later on, there's a lack of that. Because, for example, yes, we've got a match to look forward to. If you're looking forward to that, like I am looking forward to it, don't get me wrong. It's just, I shouldn't have to be looking forward to it. I would have rather, if I'm told I'm going to get a champion, I'm going to get a decided champion here.
Yeah.
Why are you leaving it another week? I think this is a point that a lot of people are making.
I mean, it's a ratings grab, isn't it? I think that's the perfect point, though, what you said about story. This match was largely a bit of a mess, and I kind of expected that for the first maybe 15, 20 minutes. People to just be having moments and the other person coming in, but the more damage people take, the more time they can take out of the ring and stuff.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I was expecting, but I was hoping for it to kind of come to this point where it was Balor and whoever you're basically going to then have him come up against, which I was thinking Ciampa will kind of be the perfect guy right now because he can take that loss and it can build into his wider story of redemption, which is what I'm hoping for. But I don't even have any faith that they're going to be telling that story anymore.
I think I want to say, I can't remember because Balor scored the first pinfall, didn't he? And I want to say from memory, I might be wrong, but I'm very sure Ciampa was the last one to get a pin in the first. Was he?
He was the last one to win a pinfall, and then he was also the only one who wasn't pinned until Balor pinned him in the last 20 seconds. And I thought they were very much going to go with the story of Balor's going to win this, but Ciampa, because they kept going back to Finn Balor and Tommaso Ciampa continuously. These are the two dominant guys in the match. And Ciampa often had like pinfalls broken up. Gargano, he made it so that Finn Balor, he hit moves on Finn Balor basically for Finn Balor to be pinned, but Gargano pushed Ciampa out of the way, and then that's how Gargano got his pin. So they're very much telling a story of like Ciampa and Balor being the dominant guys, and again, Ciampa wasn't pinned until those last 20 seconds. So I was very confident that like they were going to have Balor win. And when Ciampa was doing that move at the end, I forget, it's like Drew McIntyre. No, sorry, Sheamus does it as well. I forget what you call it, but off the ropes. If you watch the match, you'll know what I think.
The siren. Something.
Yeah,
Arid siren, I want to call it.
Yeah, that's it. So he did that off the ropes, and I was expecting then, because of the way they were using the camera, I was like, oh, Finn Balor's up on the thing, and he's gonna do a curb stomp then on, I think it was Johnny. Yeah, it was Johnny Gargano who was taking it, and then kick Ciampa to get him out of the ring, and that will be the way he gets the pin over Ciampa. But Ciampa still kind of looks good in that he kind of set that up. He also hasn't been pinned, so I thought then Ciampa would be able to come out and be like, oh, you never beat me, blah, blah, blah. I was very unlucky, and he can have all these things to say, and it was kind of like, and also it's the only match out of these four that I want to see. And again, like you said, moving into this match, we didn't really have a story, so you wanted something to develop within the match and then to come out the other side. But they didn't really, they did do that, but in a much worse way of having, well, I think anyway, of having Cole and Balor draw and then leading to a match next week, which presumably will be won by Finn Balor. If it's not, it'd be strange. But yeah, it was just one of those things. They kept going back to Finn Balor and Ciampa. They were very much highlighted, and then I was convinced, okay, this is the story they're telling, and then it just wasn't. And I was like, oh, so what was the story for this entire match? And I kind of just like, the more I thought about it, realized there wasn't really one. It was just guys hitting each other with moves. There were a few things like Cole and Balor doing the too sweet and stuff. There was a moment where Gargano was like beating up Finn Balor and was saying, I haven't forgotten about Portland.
Yeah.
And I think that's something which they might come back to, because Gargano did pin Finn Balor in the match, and maybe it will be like, because he got the pinfall over him, once Balor becomes champion, he can use that and be like, I did pin you in the match, so I deserve a title shot, even though you didn't win the match, but whatever. Like, there's more justification if Ciampa wasn't pinned, and if he kind of did all the work within the match, there's more justification for a championship match, I would say. But then they could recall to that match at Portland, and that can be Gargano's motivation, because that's why he turned heel, because things just weren't working for him, and he had to change his ways, basically. But yeah, they're just, I don't know, like you said, like looking for that story, I just couldn't really find it.
It just felt like everyone was just on level ground. Everyone had their moment. I don't know if you noticed, but the match very much played out in a way where one person had the upper hand, and then another person had the upper hand, and then the other person had the upper hand, and etc., etc. And then it was a point where they were all in the ring, and then they all collapsed, and then one person got the upper hand, and then one person got the upper hand, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
it was more, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, rather than, and this happened because of this, and then this happened because of that.
Exactly.
It was more just, it was classic WWE, just stuff just happens, as Simon Miller would say.
And it's a set, like, I don't know, I just had my hopes up for, and I know it sounds ridiculous to maybe some people, but I was hoping the Ciampa just didn't get a pinfall. I would personally, I am much more invested, because the groundwork was laid there in front of him to go out and not win things he's looking out towards getting. He's not achieving anything. He's a shell of his former self, and all these variety of things. It's just an interesting story to tell with someone of his character, especially considering he hasn't been on TV either. Play that into it as well. It's just all these variety of things. He's barely been in the ring as much as the rest recently. You can play that if you really want to. You know, you can just you've got points and points and points and points. You can nail down that story to an absolute T. And all they decided to do, and and just because they went with a direction that I particularly wasn't expecting or wanting, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad direction. But what makes it bad for me is that they didn't go in a direction that's as equally interesting. They didn't go in a direction at all. It was just he's just these are cornerstones, and they're as equal as one another. And let's be honest, Adam Cole got his through opportunistic method. He just came from behind, got it at the last thing. He's very like opportunistic, all that sort of stuff, and that's it. On another day, someone else could have got it. It very much came across that way. So moving forward,
Yeah.
We've obviously now got another match between Balor and Cole, and
Yeah.
it's
The former Bullet Club boys.
Yeah. Now, it's just I can't really explain it, but because I initially felt let down, my excitement and trust heading into this match next Tuesday, it's dipped. It's just dipped. That's not gonna stop. I'm not saying I'm not gonna watch it. Of course, I'm going to watch it. It's a match for the NXT Championship between two guys I particularly really like. However, I thought I was getting something this week, and it turns out I wasn't really getting that, and so I'm getting something else next week as a result of that. And I liked a tweet that you retweeted, which basically explained it much more eloquently than I ever could, but it was along the lines of trust. You having trust in a promotion and knowing that when they say something is going to happen, something's going to happen. Here we are going to crown a new champion. This match has been particularly created to present to you a new champion going forward, and then you turn up
particularly created to guarantee a new champion, wasn't it?
And then we don't get that. It's a disappointment. I don't care what booking you do around that. It's a disappointment because you've set expectations and you've not met those expectations. It's simple, man.
The only way you can justify not having a winner and having it done next week is if throughout the match you tell the story that these two guys are equal, but they're currently at least better than the other two. And the story that they were, I thought they were telling throughout was kind of that between Balor and Ciampa. But that, obviously I didn't think it was going to end in a draw. I thought that Balor was going to win, but Ciampa was going to have some kind of way to come back on Balor and then ultimately lose that match. And again, that plays into his wider story, which I don't think they're telling at this point. I think it's something which I thought, it's like an open goal, like it's there. And what they've done is they've been Yakubu in that one World Cup match, like Nigeria against Bosnia or whatever it was, and he just tapped it wide for no reason. And it's just like that's what they've done with that particular thing anyway. But again, like you said, it didn't necessarily have to be that. It could have been something, but the fact was that they didn't really tell the story. And if anything, Cole versus Balor is the least interesting if you're going to do a draw out of all the possibilities in terms of for Balor, because again, now that it's Cole, I'm almost 100% sure that Balor is going to win, which is part of the reason why this isn't a good match for next week, because even though Cole is probably the biggest star out of the other three, obviously Balor's the biggest, but he probably is the biggest star. He's also the least believable. He was the only one where I was like, he's definitely not winning this match, like 100% sure. So, and if they do put it on him again, then it's just really boring. It's really lazy. And it's just like, So that's the main disappointment. But it's also, also the fact that they just weren't telling the story between those two throughout the match. Again, they had that little moment with the too sweet, but that's not a story. That's not something you can kind of hark back to. That is just a little moment to like pop the fans basically, and I did pop for it, but then I didn't pop for the ending.
When I saw the match as in regards to saw the result, this is the match that's going to happen next week, blah 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 blah, and saw what they were going to do, I painted the picture in my head. And again, just because you think these things and they don't happen doesn't mean they're bad, but and I think what me and you always we like to apply when we're thinking and talking about these things is we'll give it time to assess where they're headed. NXT haven't got a good track record of that, just to make that clear. And I don't want to. I want to get onto some positives. Recently. I want to get onto some positives later because we have sort of drilled in some criticisms left, right, and centre here. There were definitely some brilliant stuff. Don't get me wrong, but seeing that match between Balor and Cole, initially, what I thought, regards to story, what I would be really interested in is maybe you could, because there's reports of Adam Cole going to main roster, having a situation where Undisputed Era turn on Adam Cole. Because, and what you could potentially do in that regard is, during that time of the Too Sweet, who was the one who was ruthless, who was opportunistic at the end of it? He wasn't playing around. He was serious. He was trying to get shit done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He didn't need to get a surprise finisher on anyone. You know? He just did. He got the job done on his own merit, you know? And you could play that into the story of this, and given the Undisputed Era are going through along, don't get me wrong, right? That would come out no way, because there's not much groundwork there to play with, because they haven't teased anything in regards to promo or anything of them. And to be honest, I'd rather they wouldn't. Although there are definitely some stories that you definitely do need to lead up to, i.e. Omega Hangman, because the lead up is the beauty of it. It's the tension of it. It's the little nuances that we get time and time again that remind us that something is brewing between the two, which is likely going to implode. Whereas sometimes, if you just have something happen, but then explain it eloquently afterwards and give an explanation, all you need to have is a promo afterwards and stuff. For me personally, as long as it's well explained afterwards, that's fine. It's fine as well. It just needs to be explained, and not just have an interview saying, so why did you do it? And then they just give a, and then just walk off, you know, or just shit like that. It's like, because I'm just coming up with stories, just stories, man, you know?
That's the thing it comes back to, like, this match next week, something needs to happen in order to justify it in terms of story. So if you were to have that happen, and then explain it over time. I would love Adam Cole versus Roderick Strong on a takeover, in kind of like a Strong becoming the new leader of Undisputed Era, and Cole kind of moving up to the main roster, if that is what they're going to do. Again, I rather they didn't, because I don't have much faith in them.
That's what I mean. But they could also
Cole well.
They could do the Pat McAfee stuff. They could be like, you're picking fights with these guys, you know, and stuff like that. You know, you're messing around.
And then telling us to stay in the back and stuff like that as well. Also, there was a thing recently where Kyle O'Reilly, I can't remember what the match was, but I think Bobby Fish was trying to be a bit aggressive after the match, and Kyle O'Reilly stopped him. It might have been Roderick Strong, but Kyle O'Reilly was definitely the one to stop, because I remember thinking, that's kind of like a face-ish type thing to do. So I don't know, they could just be turning Undisputed Era face, or they could be kind of painting them as this new faction, but with a different twinge, basically, in that being a face. Roderick Strong's a great face as well, if he was to be a leader. He came into NXT and he was just like really likable. I didn't think you could ever hate him, and then he turned on Pete Dunne, and then that was something that they did really well.
Yeah.
But and that's a way, like, I don't know, they could do it. Cole could even lose without Undisputed Era coming out to help them, and then he could be like, why didn't you help me? And then he just turns on them, basically. Or alternatively, you could have Roderick Strong kind of do a kind of Hangman type thing. Again, the groundwork isn't laid, but like basically distract Cole accidentally for the win, to give Balor the win, basically. So he comes out to try and help Cole and accidentally costs him. Which happened with Hangman months ago now. And then Cole just attacks Roderick Strong, you know, and then the Undisputed Era basically side with Roderick Strong. There's different things you could do. That could be a way in which they do it, because then you've got the stakes in the match to kind of justify that high tension. But yeah, without something like that or some other kind of story coming out, I don't really see the value in having Cole in this match. Again, we could be sitting here in a week and be saying, what a genius stroke this all was. But where we are now and looking at it, I struggle to see how they'll kind of make good out of this situation. And I don't have much faith in them, as we've said. So, yeah.
But we've been blabbing on for about a half hour now. So, so we don't want to hold people up here for too long. And essentially, talent involved, great, incredible.
Yeah,
all around.
yeah.
There was immense creativity in ring, and that's the thing with NXT. Whatever they do bad, booking wise, whatever have you, in that regard, the talent always
They
pulls out of the
expect the
park.
talent. They expect the talent to carry the product, which it does. But there's only so long that can happen.
Exactly, and when you don't have those, and I really want to highlight stories, like, and specifically
Yeah,
characters, when you don't have
yeah,
those in place and you're utilizing them well, it shows, because all we're
yeah,
getting now, it's just moves within a set amount of time and a loser and a winner.
yeah,
People can say, "Well, that's wrestling," but it's like, no, but it needs to be more than that. It should absolutely be more than that. Anyone who you can watch New Japan, not understand the commentary, but you could understand the story in the match. You know,
yeah,
even then, talking about commentary, Wade Barrett was brilliant, I thought. Although
yeah.
I very much
The main guy was terrible. Whoever the main guy is now, he's terrible. Is it
yeah,
Vic Joseph?
Is it Vic Joseph? I'm not too familiar.
Whoever it is, he's terrible.
He's very much got like a Michael Cole-esque
But Michael
vibe.
Cole knows what moves are, and this guy just calls the wrong stuff, and he's just trash. I hate it.
But like, exactly,
anyway.
and I think in terms of the well, and again, you could argue NXT's going for different audience now and more main roster-esque.
Yeah.
You know, they're going for that sort of demographic. But in regards to at least the people who are still watch NXT, at least the ones on the internet and stuff like that. And again, internet fan base are not the only fan base who watches NXT, but we're all big wrestling fans. We want to see more well explained stuff. We don't want to see, wow, oh my god, blah 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 blah. We want to see Wade Barrett talk about his experiences with Finn Balor and how that is, you know, I think there was a Wade Barrett even put his own retirement into commentary, like, but putting someone over in the process, you know.
Yeah.
Little things like that were just really well put. And like Maranello, although he was like fucking pop culture everywhere, he still what made up for that was his enthusiasm and stuff like that. And it's not
he
you're
made
not getting
things
the
feel
enthusiasm.
big.
You're not getting the Nigel McGuinness sort of stuff going out there. He's hugely missed here as well. Beth Phoenix is great, but you know, it's the end of the day. Like Beth Phoenix, it was very much Maranello, and then you had a fair bit of Beth Phoenix, a fair bit of Nigel McGuinness. You know, it was very much came across like that. But now we've just got it felt as if they were an equal third. You know, although Vic Joseph was probably you'd consider the main commentator in that booth, they very much was equal in that regard. But Wade Barrett was great. Wasn't too keen on Vic Joseph.
Yeah, Wade Barrett he's brilliant.
And also, although that's not the topic of this match, of this video as a whole, the lead up I thought was very much the same, but it was still strong regardless in terms of in-ring talent-wise, you know, and I think that runs for NXT as a whole, like as we talked about.
Yeah.
People just do exceptionally well in ring, but there's nothing around it. There's nothing, it doesn't, yeah. I'm going to sound like a broken record now.
The opening match was really fun with some big spots and stuff. It was kind of like absolute spot fest, but they managed to get in the beats and stuff. It was an example of like NXT done well, I think, even though it was a few who don't particularly care about all that much. I think it was really done well, that opening match of last night's episode. But yeah, that is our roundup of the NXT Championship match. Like we say, it was some really good action here. It wasn't boring to watch, but I was trying to find story things, and that's kind of what was keeping me invested. And then when they didn't pay off, I was like, what the hell? And then when it was a completely different thing, I was a bit like, it was just disappointing, basically. And yeah, like I said at the start, I was initially excited and I was setting myself up for disappointment, but I didn't even expect it to be this disappointing. You know, I expected the match to disappoint slightly because obviously you see that graphic and you think that's probably the best NXT match ever. And 4-ways very rarely are that and stuff, but yeah, I think, but you know, it is what it is. Ultimately, we'll have to look forward to next week and hopefully Balor winning a championship. Hopefully something does happen with Cole, whatever that is. Hopefully there is a reason why he's in that match. I just wish they could have given us some clue as to why that might have been in this match. But anyway, It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Kieran. And
As
let's do a
always.
Meltzer rating. Let's do a Meltzer
Oh,
rating.
God,
Rating out of 5,
no.
Kieran. On the spot. I'm giving it a 3.
I'll give it a 3.5.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you. You can subscribe and all that crap, but we'll see you soon.
All right. Take care, guys.